Kia ora koutou, morena. Welcome to the Infrastructure Committee online meeting this morning. No mai haere mai. To all those that are tuning in, and to our staff and elected members online. Morena from Kaingaroa. We had one of our elected members having her birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to Councillor Court, our Deputy Mayor. Sure you got spoiled thoroughly. 21 years. Is that right?
59 for the record.
Oh, well, you're doing well. So we have quite a light agenda today. We'll open our meeting today with a karakia, and we have Councillor Rachel Smith to our karakia today. Nō tātou.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora.
Mauri ora. Kia ora, Councillor Smith. That's a great start to our meeting today. So we have the confirmation of our previous minutes. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any comments, feedback, alterations? No, great. Okay, so online we do our votes by division, and our lovely governance skills Casey, she'll be bringing that up. So if you can just get ready to the place of your name.
Just got to vote on.
So thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we've just got to vote on something. I'm for Mayor Carter, you next.
Yeah, aye.
Deputy Mayor.
Aye.
Report. Councillor Collard.
Aye.
Councillor Smith.
Support.
Councillor Stratford.
Aye.
Councillor Vusic.
Aye.
Member Edmonds.
Aye.
And Member Gardner.
Aye.
Thank you. Great. So I'm glad we don't have to vote on many things today. That brings us to our next agenda item.
Excuse me, Chair, if you don't mind moving and seconding the apologies if you had any. I haven't had any, but just want to make sure that you didn't have anything else to add there before we move on to the next item. Any apologies or declarations?
Thank you, Casey. I'm not aware of any apologies or declarations.
Fantastic. Thank you.
There was an apology from me because I'm going to join the CDM meeting.
That would apply to me as
Councillor
well.
Stratford, they'll be leaving early,
yeah,
but they'll be in attendance until 11 o'clock, if that's correct, Councillor Stratford?
Yeah.
11:30.
Thank you.
Great. I'm not sure if that has to be noted in the apologies because they're still in attendance at the meeting. So we have item 5.1 being the monthly business report. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder for item 5.1?
I'll do that.
Happy to second, Madam Chair.
I think Councillor Vusic was in there first. Thank you, Councillor Vusic, to second. And we'll note as well, there's part A and part B. One relates for May 2021 and the second part relates to July 2021. Before we have the elected members speak to the item, we have our General Manager, Andy Finch. Would you like to speak to the monthly business report from your department?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Foy. This, as you've noted, the recommendation comes in two parts. The first one is to correct the error of the incorrect attachment from the last committee meeting for the May business report. That is now the correct attachment. Clearly, time has moved on since May, and the second part of the recommendation relates to July's business report, which is attached. This gives a view of the activity to the end of July, and across the whole of the IAMS business, which you'll be aware includes Three Waters, roading and district facilities. There is a lot of interesting material there, a lot of detail around all the activity that's going on and has been done. And as we move through into August and September, of course, then you'll be aware that COVID has impacted upon the ability to deliver in some areas, and we have shut down the business. I will just put a shout out to the roading and district facilities team, who have basically pulled out the plans for managing the impact of COVID restrictions and almost seamlessly closed down a lot of activity, and then almost as seamlessly opened them back up again over the last couple of days. So really a shout out for those. But really just in terms of the business report for July, it sets out a lot of detail, and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm just looking to see who would like to commence the comments. We have Councillor, I'll just note this here, we've got Councillor Smith to commence, and then I'll take a note of the others while she's speaking in terms of the order.
Councillor Collett has his hand raised too.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Andy, thank you for both of these reports. The first report, I just wanted to really acknowledge Ollie's letter in there that was written to his fantastic lollipop lady. I think it was on page 131, and just appreciating the relationship, obviously, that he built with Gayleen on the back of the MBIE fund. So it was really cool to see in the July report that Gayleen has been brought on as a permanent member of Ventia. So that was a really, really cool little kickstart to reading the report. I think was picking up on that. The July report was, as you pointed out, the May report we've moved on, so I'll leave my questions because they are no longer relevant. But the July report, I thought that there were some really great additions to this report, so I really wanted to thank you and your team for all of the things that you're continuously adding to this. And I do feel like a lot of what you're adding is responsive to feedback and things, so that's really positive to see. And it was I really enjoyed reading the business report this time, and it's usually quite chunky and heavy. I'm not sure if that's sad to say that or not, but I'll put it out there and disclose it. The capital projects update is really, really cool, and it's great to see that in there. I noted that I think it's Carterton District Council have recently developed a capital projects page on their website, so it updates the public in terms of what major capital works programs are going on and where they're at and things. And from a communication and reputation point of view, I think that there's a great opportunity there. So I'd love to perhaps through my communications portfolio, but in partnership with you, pick up looking at whether or not we could do that, especially on the back of what we've been doing for the PGF projects. I wanted to acknowledge the audit of RSL in particular, and including those in the reports. That's really, really good information. I did have a question, so I've got 3 questions, so I'll just give them all to you and then you can answer them if you can. My first question was, in terms of the audit of RSL, what constitutes an unscheduled work in relation to toilets? I noticed that there were 10, and I was just interested to know what that is and whether or not there's opportunity to be wrapping that into contract going forward, or whether that's emergency works. My next question was in relation to page 267, the Russell landfill, and I note that that's temporarily closed and there's some work going on to address that. I just wanted a little bit of a brief as to how that connects to the resolution of council to report back with options to close the landfill. which is obviously a resolution that we put in place before these issues arose. And then my final question was in relation to page 269. I noticed that litter infringement and illegal dumping volumes were 3 times as high at the southern end of the district, but all of the actions were, all of the infringement fines were in the Te Hiku area. So I was just a little bit confused as to whether there's no relation to that or whether there's a reason why we're only ticketing in Te Hiku or whether it's just a coincidence. My final point was just around Project Darwin. Obviously, it wouldn't be a business report without me asking about Project Darwin. It was good to see those updates, and it's great to see some resourcing has been put into that. I know that we're talking about Project Darwin this afternoon at Assurance, Risk and Finance. I just wanted a little bit of commentary, if possible, around the timeline for delivery of phase 1. And I note that that's been set for Q4 of 2022. I'm just a little bit concerned about what on-flow effects that might have to other pieces of work and how that aligns with what the initial time frame was. That's me. Thank you.
Through the chair. Oh, there's a lot there, wasn't there? Firstly, let's start with unscheduled work on toilets. That's generally in response to vandalism. So it's unplanned work. If someone rips a sink off or a unit off the walls, then that is generally unscheduled work that we come in and seek to repair as quickly as possible. So that's really that item there. The Russell landfill closure, yep. We have identified that there are some subsidence in the landfill. We have closed it temporarily, but no service degradation to the residents of Russell, as the waste transfer station and normal facilities are open to them. It's just that we are shipping any waste down to Whangarei as part of the contract while we do an investigation into the cause. That issue does align with the council resolution around the investigation of the closure of the Russell landfill permanently. And part of the conversation that we need to do is what is the cost of rectification balanced against what is the cost or the residual life of the landfill, and we will do that piece of work and bring that back to council. So it is a cost time equation really, and the suspicion is that it might not be worth doing any remedial work with the life that's left, but let's crunch the numbers correctly and give you some detailed analytics on that will allow you to inform the decision. Litter dumping Te Hiku. I'm not sure the answer to that one. Can I come back to you on that one? Why we have the infringements largely in the northern area, unless Dean's got a comment, whilst most of the litters seems to be in the south, the tonnage is in the south. So I just need to investigate that a little bit more. And Programme Darwin, it is a challenge going forward, and the context of Programme Darwin is about getting our asset management system to a much better place, but also looking at process, people, and mapping out systems for ensuring that when we have a robust cross-council activity for asset management going forward. The pressure is clearly on timing and resourcing, and what we're finding is the data cleansing exercise is proving challenging. It is proving very, very time consuming. And the interesting thing is balancing the demands on data cleansing with other demands from the same team that are being asked to do other activities as well. And whilst data cleansing is not the most exciting of activities for asset managers, as you would suspect, and they're quite often distracted to go and do other activities that are more that have a little bit more pressing need and a bit more exciting to do. So it is about balancing their workloads across all the activities that we are doing. It is challenged. The data cleansing and putting the information into the system is taking a lot longer than we anticipated. We have double checked and worked alongside our colleagues in water care who are also implementing systems, and they are finding the data cleansing challenging as well. So it's not just us. The system implementation is progressing well, but the other areas we are still a little bit challenged around, and we can talk about that at after this afternoon.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. That was great.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Smith. I think Dr. Jean may have a response also.
Madam Chair, thank you. To the question related to infringements for litter, we'd have to check that. I don't have the ready answer to that. It would depend on who issued the infringements. Often that comes through our contractors. So yeah, we'd have to take that offline and get back to Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just the lineup now is Dave Collard, then Councillors Kelly Stratford, and then Councillor Vusic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are along. I had a similar question in relation to the Te Heku dumping thing, and obviously that's yet to be answered. And I thank you for it. In terms of Andy's earlier comment about seamless moving on of the roading contractors, I'm witness to that in terms of Spains Road and Kunasich Road, stopped at level 4 and started at level 3. And I was flabbergasted that it happened so easily and quickly. So that was quite awesome. But the other concern that I have is road inspection. And as a recent thing, I was concerned to have to go over Waitahui Road. Now, as much as that is now, that didn't just happen overnight. It's something that's happened during the times of these reports. And I'm wondering at the frequency of roads that are used by heavy-duty trucks that we're aware of in terms of logging that are destroying the roads. The current situation with that road is it's a goat track and very dangerous. I drove the whole road 2 days ago, and my concern is that nobody's has looked at it. There's subsidence, there's slips on it, there's obvious damage from huge trucks, and it didn't just happen overnight. So it's something that is in the report timeframe, and I'm wondering about that inspection or the contractor looking, or even the our staff monitoring. Is there a recipe in terms of what's going to look after that?
Through the chair, I think Calvin's turned his camera on, which I think is notifying that he wishes to speak to that item.
Yeah, through the chair, as most elected members are aware, there is a routine road inspection frequency based on the classification of the road. Where we get advance notice from forestry of a change in usage of the road, we work with the contractors to increase that frequency. I'll need to check on this road in particular, but it does ring a bell in terms of one that we have been paying extra attention to. I am aware that given the amount of rain we've had recently, we are in a bit of a case of knowing what we need to do, but between the rain and level 4 and 3, not necessarily being in a position to do what needs to be done immediately. I will go back to the team, however, and find out, given your comments about this happening over a period of time, what has been done for this road in particular, to find out the additional inspections. With respect to your comment about staff going out, so I believe there's some data in the report. We're required under the contract to audit 10% of the contractor's audits. We tend to pretty much cover the same amount of network as the contractors do with our area supervisors, and go out there. That's a combination of checking both their audits and their quality of works, completed works. But I've taken a note of that road in particular, and we'll follow up with Aram following this meeting.
Yeah, I didn't want to single out that road
Yep.
in particular, but it was more a case of an overall view of
Yep.
that happening. Thank
So,
you.
cool.
Okay, it looks like that's the completion of Kevin's comments. So thank you, Councillor Collard. We have Councillor Stratford next, then Councillor Vucic, then Member Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don't run away, Calvin. I'll start with my roading questions. So there was a report showing it within the IM's monthly report is a report showing monthly averages and in comparison to the previous month, but it doesn't really tell me what we should expect to see them actually maintaining. What the charts are showing me is that the northern contractor is really good at clearing drainage and the southern is not. And also that very little culvert clearing happens and marker replacements. There's probably a reason, explanation behind all that, but the report doesn't tell me. And I just wanted some clarity on whether, I think that a pavement is road, so the report's lacking footpaths, is that right? On footpath maintenance, that's not clear to me what's happening, and also the lack of grading. I don't know what the word is without being rude. I'm trying to be nice today. But yeah, that's my little thing, the things that jumped out at me from that report. Calvin, did you want to respond?
Yeah, through the chair, the report is one that's fairly new in development, so we're just working through at the moment in terms of how we can provide expectation data. So I guess the monthly average is one of those mechanisms to provide it. However, a number of these activities are seasonal, so the monthly average is not necessarily what we would expect. So one of the things we are looking at is providing comparative data from previous years of that same month as one option. There is the grading itself. These 2 months, I think they were June and July. They're not heavy grading months because of the weather. So they're not when we would expect to be doing most of our grading. So that is expected. Aram has attempted to put commentary in where there are discrepancies. So I guess in reading this report from a staffing perspective, where there are discrepancies, we'll note them in the commentary. Where we believe the data is as expected, we won't say anything about it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it is a evolving report that up until probably 6 months ago, we didn't have this data in a format that we could provide, and now we're just moving this through. With respect to footpaths, it hasn't to date been included in this data, but I'll make a note to Aram to see if we can get something along footpath maintenance added into the
that would be really good, because
reports.
that is something that is a pinch point out there.
Yep.
On to the next one, Madam Chair. Not roading, just in the somewhere under engineering standards, I can't remember what page, it mentioned that where all the OCS audits were occurring at council facilities, but I just wondered, is there a schedule, a program of that happening? Because there's definitely some missing. For example, Te Ahu Library or Kawakawa Library.
Through the chair, do you know which page you're on, Councillor Stratford? Sorry, I'm just trying to flick through.
I'll come back to that one.
Okay.
I'll go to one that I've got a page number. Page 123, the park on Ortidia Road. That's an awesome outcome for the community, something that the community's been wanting for a long time, where that paper road, I mean, it had rubbish on it. Various people were using it as a dump site, and now it's a connecting space with a place where people can sit down and have a kai or ride their bike through. My concern now is who's going to maintain it, please. It's going to need some mowing, and it will need continued maintenance. So you may need to get back to us on that, Andy.
Could you just confirm the page number? Sorry,
page
Calvin?
123.
So through the chair, that's the park that was cleaned up with the MB funding.
I think it was.
Yep.
Yes. So we've been working with district facilities now. We've facilitated that cleanup to firstly, Ventia have provided, they've donated the picnic tables that are in there, which is great. They're also putting some blockades in to try and prevent access, but we are working with district facilities in terms of making sure there is a maintenance program in place so that it doesn't get overgrown and the grass does get maintained and it is kept in a condition that's still good for the community.
Yeah, and by access you mean negative access, like the undesirable behaviours.
Yes.
Cool, thank you for that, Calvin. And I've taken out all my water issues. I'll raise them tomorrow, Andy, at our Three Waters portfolio. But one thing that I'll bring up here is in the, I don't even know what page it. What's the end of our area? You know, singing the praises of some of the whangarei community groups that are doing rubbish picking up. And I just wanted to highlight that we've got regular pickup, litter pickups along roadsides across our district. And we do have waste contractors that work with these community groups, like they supply bags. And I think even Simon Millicham at times supplies bags for our community groups that are doing their own rubbish pickups. But I just wanted to highlight that Whangarei and Koitar their councils are supporting this and singing their praises, and somehow this has fallen into our report. It would be good if we could work with the communities that are, what's his name, Simon Upperton encouraged one during lockdown a couple of weeks ago, and it was really successful. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Councillor Stratford. Councillor Vucic is next.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be specific. I've got two main questions. I thought I see there's delays on the Kaitai water, the finalisation of the pipeline route. I thought that was done, so I wouldn't mind a comment on that, Andy, when that's likely to be done, given we know that summer's not that far off. That's one question. The second one is, I know it was mentioned in Project Darwin, and yes, it's going to be, the risk is being done. I thought a few things. One is you identify the risk there. It's not red, and it's identified as emerging risk. This is one of the high projects that elected members have been pushing for some time, more than this triennium. But what I was concerned about is you make mention on page 242, Darwin does not currently have a formal budget. So I'm going to say, why not? I would have thought that should be there so that we can get this done. And the final comment is that cleansing of data, yes, if we had no asset system, the data is likely to be all over the place, and that's one of the key things why asset management system is used. I would, and I guess this does relate to the budget. What would be nice is to actually hire a temporary student, maybe a data scientist or somebody, to work through that process to speed it along if possible, or to look at a different approach. And what I mean by a different approach, maybe as we touch an asset, we do capture the data at that point, and therefore we can get this running sooner rather than later. My comment, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, the Kaitai water project, the update for that was written in July, and clearly we've moved on from that. So the Kaitai water project contract's been awarded, the land issues have been resolved, pipes have, I believe, been delivered to site since this was written, and work has either recommenced or is about to recommence on site. So there's no delay on that at the moment. So we're, apart from clearly the 2 weeks that we went into lockdown and everything needed to shut down. In terms of Programme Darwin, there is a capital budget and there is a staffing budget. The issue being is balancing the two, and some activities are capitalisable and some are not. So we are working through that. We can discuss perhaps a little bit more detail this afternoon around the timing at ARF, but the two pieces of work, or the piece of work that I've got underway at the moment, is looking at the overall roadmap for Darwin based on the resourcing and budgets we've got at the moment, and then preparing a document that looks at the implications and cost and resourcing needed if we choose as a council to accelerate that programme. So that will be coming forward shortly to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Andy. I also note in the chat from Councillor Court that an email was sent about Project Darwin to Will. Is he there on one of the screens?
Is Will on today?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Will. Councillor Court just noted her email to you, and if you'd like to speak about Project Darwin and the questions that Councillor Court raised.
Councillor Court raised some very pertinent questions, and it's one which Andy and I and Tanya sat down to try and bring together. One of the things that I'm grateful for is when councillors raise these in advance, because it allows us to do some research. The nature of Councillor Court's question was about an apparent juxtaposition between what the ARF report was saying and what the infrastructure report was saying regarding risk. Is that a fair summary, Councillor Court? I've got Councillor Court is nodding there. And Andy and I believe that this is partly down to timing and partly down to the language which we've used in our ARF report. I think we could have been more definite in terms of the words that we were using. This was about, I think Andy had used the phrase previously that this was about the recruitment of staff. Andy, if I've got this right, is at what stage we were at. And it was open to the words which were used could have been more definite. So, for example, we could have said that we are interviewing for candidates on the first week of September, or what was written could have meant that we were seeking funding for interviewing at some stage in the future. So that wording was loose, and I've apologised to Councillor Court on staff's behalf for that. But this afternoon, I think we'll be able to explore this in much more detail when we've got Tanya's risk report.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for that response. It's great to see that we're trying to make the different committee information link better to ensure that the departments are being consistent with their messaging. Thank you, Councillor Busic. Member Gardner, are you? There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just got a couple of items. Firstly, just thank you for the two great reports. Some were really good. And on page 275 and 276, I really went through that hall list, and I didn't see Lake Ohia Hall on there. So I'd like to know where the status of that, where it is, whether it's compliant or not, please.
75, 76. So I was just scrolling down. 75, 76. Could you just repeat the question? Sorry, I'm down there now on page 275.
Yes, Lake Ohia Hall is not on the list, and I would like to know whether it is compliant or not.
Can I come back to you on that?
Yes,
Unless Helen's got any information, she's online at the moment.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm just sort of getting to the same page as well. Lake Ohia is supposed to be noted, but I did note that the last time I saw that list, it was under a different name. So we will have to come back to you, Adele, and clarify that list.
Okay, thank you so much. The other couple of things, the Hihi Community Centre lease is new. Sorry, I haven't got a page number. I just picked up on that because at the moment we're thinking of spatial planning this area, and we need to know where they're going to put a community centre in that area. So just sort of noting that as to where that could be, please.
Okay.
The Kaitai Plunket rooms I did pick up as well. I've had a couple of people in the community asking about these rooms. Don't know if they probably thought maybe the council was going to rent them out or not. I don't know. But anyway, I did pick up in the report that the rooms are going to be moved off the site. So that's a plus. Do you have any idea when that's going to happen, please?
Through the chair, I don't at this point, but I'm happy to come back to you on that.
Yes, it's in Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Gardner. I also have some questions, and I'll just give you the page numbers. So of the agenda, it's page 296. It just relates to the Monganui waterfront development. Just a request to staff, it would be great to have Whānau Holdings in the working group, just to present to the community board and or the council to give more details about what's occurring for that waterfront development, to go through the plans and a time frame for delivery. That would be really appreciated. I can see it's been delivered by Whānau Holdings, so that would be great, particularly as Member Gardner's identified that Doubtless Bay is one of the areas that the community board's focusing on with the placemaking, and that is an integral part of Doubtless Bay. So just a request if I can have a time frame relating to that, in particular to include the community board members in Te Huku. Did anyone want to respond about that? Or
I will do. I think this is being led by the community and Mark Osborne, and I believe the work has started, so or is just about to start. So probably the best outcome for that it would be to invite Mark to come and present to a deputation to the next infrastructure committee, if that would be a wish for that to happen.
Great, yeah, no, that's welcomed. In particular, if it's going to be online, yeah, probably quite opportune to do it while we're using the digital space. So that would be great, just to keep everyone updated. Just some positive feedback, and the NTA here, and they'll speak next, but I'm just trying to find the page. It had some great pictures about the clearing of the drainage on Kaitai Awaroa Road. I just noticed how they're doing a really comprehensive job of that to coincide with the reseals. So I don't know if this is like a standard thing that's going to be happening as part of that system, but I just wanted to give feedback that it looks really good from the community's perspective, that they're doing a thorough job at the time of a reseal, so that they're doing not just the renewal of the seal pavement, they're actually looking at the drainage aspects first and foremost before they spend all that money on the reseals. So Calvin might know the page, but it's got some really great pictures there.
Through the chair, I'm not sure on the page, but maybe an opportunity for Greg Monteith to actually comment on that process of what we're doing for our reseals. He's our capital and renewals project manager who's in the meeting at the moment.
Yep. Thanks very much, Calvin. Yep, through the chair, we do try, and we are getting smarter about coordinating all our works where we can. We try to get in, do the drainage, do everything beforehand. And even from an asset management point of view, I suppose trying to do those things well in advance, just to see even in doing drainage improvements or smaller items, would that just prolong the asset life and give us a bit longer? So all those smart things we do try to do. Obviously, budgets and constraints and some items that come into that, we can't always do that, and we've got to prioritize what and when we do in terms of the drainage renewals and the vegetation clearing and all that, and try to prioritize where we can go in the biggest need. But we do certainly try to align that, and even trying to get into the space now of aligning with other departments, and now looking at aligning with other service providers, and just more joined up thinking and smarter way of working. So we certainly are progressing that, and yeah, hopefully looking for better outcomes.
Well done. It's on page 335. So you'll just note there that they're doing all that before they do the resale. So that's great. On page 337, I had a question about heavy metalling. It talks about the potholes, which I'm not as concerned about. But it talks about in figure 12, maintenance, metal and heavy metalling. I wasn't sure about how that heavy metalling works in terms of the budgets, if it's like a capital thing or if it comes out of the maintenance budget, and how you pick and choose which roads get heavy metalling or not. Because I think that that's really important considering how extensive our metal network is, and a lot of them probably need to be heavy metalled, but choosing those priorities, and if we're getting around enough around the network for heavy metalling. That was my question.
Yeah, through the chair, our heavy metalling program, as I understand it, is a CapEx program under the maintenance and operations budget. So it's classed as a renewals activity. It's managed through our maintenance contracts. RM and the team do use asset management principles and audit inspection data and defects to identify the areas of greatest need. I think I recall September last year, we came to Infrastructure Committee with the heavy metalling planned program for last year. We're a little bit behind in providing that this year because we've been waiting for budgets to be confirmed, and then we'll be able to pull the program together. But we have been working with contractors getting ready for the spring season. On average, under previous budgets, we were able to heavy metal approximately 6 to 8% of the network per year. In that respect, so it does take some time to get around the entire network, so there does have to be quite a bit of prioritization involved. And when we do it, we don't necessarily do the entire piece of road. We'll do the sections of road that require it most. I guess the biggest thing about this is we're working collaboratively with our contractors to actually set these programs up at the start of the year, with an allowance for some emergency or changes to happen through the program. But it's really to move to a bit like Greg said before, a more planned approach in our works, and move away from salt and pepper shaker, going and putting metal down on the ground. And in these cases, we try and deal with the water tabling, the drainage, the crossfall, and everything at the same time as doing the heavy metaling. So it is a much more asset management based approach, trying to build the road back up.
Great. Thanks for that response, Calvin, because my next question relates to what you just said about the planned approach. I really appreciate the schedule of the road sealing in advance, coming in a 3-year time frame to give certainty not only to council asset managers, but to the private sector to build up capability and capacity to deliver and to work within construction season constraints. In terms of council, I haven't seen that in terms of a heavy metalling program. If you're saying 8 to 10%, it'll take 10 years to get across the full network, you know, in theory, if we were to heavy metal the whole network. So could we move to a heavy metalling approach for a 3-year time frame, for example, to align with the regional land transport plan funding, or to align with our LTP cycles? Is that an option for heavy metalling?
So from a quantity, through the chair, from a quantity perspective, we do take that approach because the heavy metalling is part of the maintenance and operations budgets. We confirm the available budgets through the LTP process, and the contractors are aware of what budgets are available for that work type. Because metal roads change more and are more variable than sealed roads, we tend to have a more dynamic program of a more shorter term with which actual roads are being done. So we work on a 12-month window of confirmation, but even heading into each season, we review that based on current knowledge of the network. I guess the short answer is we have a 3-year funded program, but the specific roads are more at a seasonal basis of confirmation. But as I mentioned, I believe we provided that last year, where we should be in a position to provide the spring season one for next infrastructure committee.
That's great. And I have one last roading question. It's about traction seals. There's lots of roads that have steeper gradients, so they get a lot of rutting and need more stormwater control, and have a higher maintenance requirement because of the gradient. Is there a program that we could work to for traction seals as well, or for those steeper roads? And there would be a huge list of them, that have the higher maintenance requirement, and we could avoid that by just doing seals on the steeper parts.
Through the chair, yes, we do have significant number of sites identified as traction seal potential. I believe there was traction seal funding requested through to Wakatahi in the NLTP funding. We're only getting that detail yesterday. I'm not sure on the status of that approval. However, whether that's subsidised or not subsidised, there is potentially the opportunity for council to prioritise funding in that area. But I guess we'll know more about that in the next week or so, once the team have actually gone through and identified it. But it is one area definitely that we see as an opportunity to save maintenance costs and improve the quality.
Great. Those are all my questions. I noticed in the chat, Kelly Councillor Stratford had a question about the workshop for the sealing and dust matrix. But I'm guessing that's dependent on COVID.
Yeah. We in our, was it the last infrastructure committee meeting, or was it a council meeting? We discussed assisting the public to understand how the matrix works, because we get questioned on it all the time.
So through the chair, yes, we are working on developing content for a workshop with elected members. I believe at this stage we're targeting November for that workshop, given the same team are working through the NLTP implications and funding. So it's probably at this stage that's the higher priority. But we do recognise that think there were comments about going through each of the attributes, understanding how they drive the matrix, some of the attributes that you were, Councillor Stratford mentioned that may have been missing or maybe valuable to add. So at this stage, we're targeting a November workshop for that.
Thank you. So I think that we've had quite a thorough debate on and quite a few questions today on the report here. We've had a mover and a seconder, so we can go to the vote. I vote for Councillor Mayor Carter. Thank you. Deputy and Councillor Court. Thank you. Councillor Collard, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stratford, Councillor Vusic,
Aye.
Member Edmonds,
Aye.
Member Gardner.
Aye.
Thank you. So we move on to our next item, our closing item, 5.2, and we have Calvin to speak to this. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll do that again.
Councillor Vusic, thank you. And before we have elected members with any questions or queries, can we have Andy and or Calvin to speak to that?
Through the chair, I'm quite happy to hand this across to Calvin to take the credit for what has been a really strong year from the NTA and a really great outcome from the redeployment package.
So, thanks, Andy. Through the chair, yeah, this is the second of our regular quarterly reports, but this one also doubles as a year-end report. And as Andy mentioned, it's been a huge year both for Far North delivery and across the region. I'll take the majority of the report as read. I guess a couple of things I'd just like to highlight. Not only the development of the delivery of the program, but in parallel, we've been working quite hard internally on the organisational improvement plan, which works around culture and our systems and our processes, which is starting to come together. Still about 12 months of work to do there, but it's definitely making a difference in how we operate. And I guess I just want to make, I know in the last meeting we acknowledged some of the team. I think Aram and Kushla were there, but part of the reason for inviting Greg along today to the meeting was to introduce him to elected members. It's Greg's team who have led the delivery of the 70+ million regional capital works program delivery, and from a subsidised perspective at more than 95% delivery. So that's definitely something to be proud of, and something that his team have worked really hard to do. So and I guess finally the last thing was just the MB worker redeployment. It's been a huge success, both from what we were able to achieve with the funding, but also the social and employment outcomes. MB completely blown away by not only the 111 odd jobs we were able to create, but even ourselves were surprised with the fact that over 90% of those have, at the time of writing a report, had maintained their positions. We had expected that this might be a short-term employment and not lead on to longer things. We are in the process of drafting a press release for the region about that program, but we've presently put it on hold because we do need to go back to the contractors and confirm the status of those employees given the latest lockdown and things like that. We don't want it to turn into a bad news story. So, but even over those past 12 months, there's been some really good success stories. So just any questions, really, either for myself or Greg?
Thank you. Greg, you there?
Yes, here.
Oh, hi, Greg. And Calvin, just from the elected members and It's great to have you here, even though it's not in person, but I'd like to give you a round of applause for all of your work. Thank you very much for making us look so good and such great delivery.
Thank you very much. I will certainly pass that on to the team. Just acknowledge that they have worked exceptionally hard this year to try and get that through, just with the carryovers that we had from last year, the additional work coming in through to help that rebounce back. So all our contractors, our consultants and our staff have really driven hard to get that achievement of the 95+%. So it's been a great year. So hopefully we can carry on in that and build on that success.
Well done. Thank you so much. And to Calvin and your team, and for making Andy and our CEO, Sean Clark, look so good with your amazing delivery.
Yeah, well done, guys.
Thank you. Before we go into having all the elected members, we have our roadie portfolio holder, Councillor Court. Would you like to start off with any commentary on this item about the NTA, given your portfolio?
That's a really hard act to follow, so I'm not quite sure that I can add anything else. It has been an exemplary result. I'm not quite sure the customers on the network always appreciate just what a challenge a network the size of ours is. And I just cast everyone's mind back to the 2018 NLTP, where we were heavily moderated down in our funding bid, so that the guys been able to pull off this kind of a result from the money that they got is extraordinary. And I just think that needs to be publicly stated. I just have to be a little careful here, because I've just been given the results of our funding pitch moving forward. And there doesn't seem to be an unhappy face in the emojis. So if there was an unhappy face up there, you would see my unhappy face. We will be getting a report in due course about the implications of the announcement, which I'm happy, and we will be having another conversation, but that's a conversation for another day. Today is the day to celebrate success. So Greg, Calvin, Andy and everybody in the team, awesome.
Thank you, Councillor Court.
Thank you, Councillor Court. And thank you for all your efforts in that portfolio area as well. Councillor John Busich is to speak next. If you'd like to raise your hand, and then I can add you to the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and great to see the delivery. Two questions that I have. It does sort of hinge on the funding, and if you can give me an answer to the question, and that is, are we able to fund the maintenance on our road at acceptable level? Because that's one of my concerns, given that can be significant cost if we can't even maintain a acceptable level. And the second thing, which does relate, is I realise that Marsden Point's going to be closed, and that tar is likely to be imported, and it's more around the inflation impacts we might be facing in the future as well. So can you comment on the expected material cost rise and what that may actually mean for us up here? Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Busich, I'll just note to the elected members today that we don't have all the information about the new announcements for that only just came yesterday. So the staff will be providing us a comprehensive report about what we requested in the Regional Land Transport Plan in terms of funding, what the funding is from the New Zealand Transport Agency. So we haven't got all the details. It was only announced yesterday. Calvin, are you happy to answer Councillor Busich's questions generically, or would you have to get more details?
Madam Chair, I want to raise a point of order at this point. We've got to speak to the report before us. We can't speak to a report that's not before us. So moving forward, the staff at the NTA need time to analyse the report, as you the announcement and make a decision and come back to us in due course. So my point of order is purely that we've got to speak to the report before us, which is a closeout for the year that we've just had.
Madam Chair, I'm not actually talking about announcements that I'm not aware of. I'm talking about our current situation and our funding. So if we look at the current year that's before us, have we had enough money in the current year before us to actually maintain our roads to the current standard? And what likely funding increases we likely expect given the announced months previously of changes to pricing of materials?
Thank you. Again, Madam Chair, that we're talking about the year that we've just closed out, 30 June. Councillor Vucic's question relates to the year coming, and the report is not intended to address that.
Thank you, Councillor Court. I note your point of order. The 2 points that Councillor Vucic has raised, one relates to the current report, being the first part of his question about the current standard of the roads and the budget of the current financial year. The latter part of his question, I do have to concur that it does relate to the new budget, so we might have to hold that off. And Councillor Vucic, just give the staff a couple of weeks to come back with a comprehensive report. I'll have Calvin to respond to the matter that pertains to this report, and then our CEO, Sean Clark, would like to speak also. Then we have Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to the maintenance funding available last year and maintaining level of service, we maximise the available subsidy that we had. We changed the processes that we were using to have, as we've mentioned previously, a more proactive and thorough asset management based response to what we're doing. And you'll note in the table on page 360, we actually enabled redistribution of some budgets to allow a 7% overspend in the unsealed road networks compared to the original budgets, as that was the area of greatest need. So that was within our ability of Koitar funding to do that. I will comment on the bitumen situation in general. We are working very hard with both Koitar asset management team and contract management team, and the getting information from contractors on implications. The primary implication is likely to be around freight costs, given that bitumen was previously supplied by the refinery, and under the import structure at the moment, at least for this coming season, it will be from Mount Maunganui. We are working with Koitar as they're impacted as well for the Northland State Highways to understand what the implications of that are from a contractual and cost perspective. So on the longer term, Koitar have put out an expression of interest to the industry to find either alternate solutions, or they're also talking to the refinery around storage tank options once they move to the tank farm arrangement that they've recently announced.
Yeah, thanks, Calvin, and for your complete answer. And thank you.
Thank you. To our CEO, Sean Clark, would you like to have commentary on this issue?
I did, but I think that covers it adequately, so I'll stand down. Thanks very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Calvin and Greg, for this report. Obviously, it's been very well celebrated and well deserved, so thank you for that. My question was in regards to sustainable procurement, and obviously we've had some fantastic outcomes that have been highlighted in this report. So my question is, what learnings have you been able to take from this process that you can now implement into sustainable procurement policies within NTA that we might also be able to share with our sustainable procurement within our organisation as well? Thank you.
So through the chair, just to clarify, you're talking about the learnings from the MB Worker Redeployment Program?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. So just in general, the NTA leverages off council's own procurement processes, policies and practices. We do, however, have a NTA Procurement Strategy, which is the strategy endorsed by Koitar, which we need to have to uptake any subsidy funding. And that strategy has been recently reapproved with some social procurement elements added. We're working with each council to get more alignment, and I might actually ask Greg to jump in here to talk about the kind of service level agreement process we're working on in our procurement process.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, yeah, we're currently looking at our procurement policy, and I suppose with that is in the mechanisms of how we go through procurement and the approval levels and the documentation that goes around that to try and help streamline that process. But in conjunction with that, I suppose we are aligning that policy obviously with the NTA strategy, which then goes back to obviously the government sources of procurement, takes into account all the council's procurement processes, and then obviously the Waka procurement manual, which all then relate to those good sort of outcomes that we want to achieve. But in addition to that, we're currently obviously want to do a step further because we want to make a robust and usable document that our staff are going to bring in those well-beings, as we're calling them, that we want to get out, and that's like the social procurement, the environmental, the zero carbon waste, all these things that we want to bring in sort of a toolbox, and are currently, I suppose not. We're pulling apart the Auckland Council, who put a really good document together about their well-beings, and we're trying to bring that into our process that we can implement this year, and pick a few that we know that we can really tick off, and not try to bite off too much. So little things like the wage, minimum wage that we can put in. It's an easy thing to put into our procurement. Those sort of items, the carbon zero. How do we rate our contractors and say, well, what are you doing in this space? And just trying to bring in and start to bring those into the industry of what we do, and not try to change it overnight, but try to just gradually improve and get better. So you will see this year, and it will come back to the FNDC, I suppose, at some point, that some of the items we want to really progress and push. I won't obviously go into detail now, but it's just looking at a lot of those things where the industry is going. So, and trying to reward those contractors that are actually in that space, and trying to then not discourage, not penalise the other contractors, but obviously encourage them and build them up to a place where they can then start looking at minimum wages, where they can start looking at what are they doing in terms of the environmental footprint, and what are they doing then for the socio-economic outcomes of and how are they bringing in, I suppose, the employment aspect of what we talked about through the redeployment of how we getting in the Maori Pacifica, the youth, what are they doing, and the equity sort of conversation, bringing in, I suppose, more women into the workplace, all those sort of things. But that's the space we're in now, which is quite exciting, and it's hopefully we'll start to see some of those changes coming through in the next couple of months.
Thank you, Greg. It's fantastic to see how passionate and driven you are in that space. So I'm really excited to see where you guys take that and how we might be able to take some learnings as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. I have a couple of questions, and I'll just alert you to the pages. So page 360, and you won't be surprised that my question relates to drainage renewals. So really great little table at the bottom of the page there. Unsealed road metalling, 118%. So the only one we didn't quite get to the 100% was the drainage renewals. I just wanted to get some clarity about if there'll be a carry forward or not with that money, and if it just related to the construction season, and if does it relate to water tables, or does it relate to culvert replacements? That was my first question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would need to find out the exact details of what it related to, but answering a couple of questions in there, that amount cannot be carried forward because it was the end of the NLTP cycle. However, that part of the offset of some of the other activities we use for it. So we didn't lose subsidy in the lights. What I'm not sure about, if you'll note there, drainage renewals there is both for sealed and unsealed. I'm not sure where the shortfall was, so I'd need to find that out. So we can come back to you in terms of details of what activities weren't and where and weren't done. Unless you have, do you have any further on that, Greg, or you're not across the splits either?
No, I'm not across the splits, but we do with all those budgets, we do try to balance them and obviously keep them going and spend the dollars where they're meant to go. But if it's looking like we can't, then we do have the opportunity to move them across to other areas where we know we can utilize the full subsidy. In terms of what we spend the drainage renewals on, it can be renewals of curb and channel. It can be then culverts. It can be renewing it wouldn't be clearing water tables. But it could be establishing water table sort of thing. So it's, okay, that helps.
Just adding to that, I think in the bottom line below the routine drainage maintenance, the amount underspent in drainage renewals was spent on maintenance. So there was almost an equivalent amount of 200,000 there. So I'm not sure if that was the offset, but we'll come back to you with more detail on that, Madam Chief.
Thank you, Calvin. And I just have one other question. I will note that Councillor Stratford and Councillor Collard need to attend another meeting. So just to note for Casey, we will be losing 2 elected members, but we will still have quorum. Casey, just noting that.
Noted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So Councillor Stratford seems to have left the meeting already. Councillor Collard's still here. My second question and last question is at the bottom of page 361. It says, as the last bullet point, increasing detailed understanding of unsealed road lump sum items in the maintenance contracts. I'm really glad that the staff are asking those questions to ensure that we get better value for money on our unsealed roads. Can we get more detail about what that sentence means in practice?
Yes, Madam Chair. So what we're actually doing is doing some analysis of the the first 3 years of the maintenance contract's actual quantities. So while there are a number of activities under the lump sum that are covered, we do get reports within RAM of what activities are actually undertaken for those as part of that lump sum, down to a detailed individual pothole level and the likes. So what the asset management team are looking at is understanding the volumes of those activities, comparing those volumes versus our original engineering estimate for the values that we applied for some of those before the tender, and just getting a real idea of both quantity and cost. Are we getting what we believe we should be getting out of the lump sum? That work started maybe 2 to 3 months ago. We were going to do it at the end of year 2. However, with the COVID impacts on the last quarter of that year, it did provide a bit of a anomaly in the data. So in the areas that weren't impacted, we've been working on it, but now we've got 3 years worth of solid data. That kind of 2-month anomaly makes less of an impact now. And I'll have a talk to Jeff offline once as a result of this as well, and just see what sort of reporting we're intending to do back on that. I suspect it may be part of any contract renewals conversation, that this would be data that supports any recommendations. So those contracts, just for reference, are 4+2+2 contracts. So at the end of this year, we're at the end of the first solid term of the contract. So RM's presently working on a paper to bring to each council on outlining the renewal triggers and the renewal process for those maintenance contracts, and what options are available to elected members.
Excellent, well done. I know it's now September, so we'll be getting into the construction season pretty soon. In Aram last year, or might have been the year before, brought the council or the infrastructure committee a list of all the works to be done in the construction season, particularly for seasonal tourism roads like Henderson Bay, for example, or Matai Bay. A lot of the more contentious roads. It'll be great if we could be told sort of when that or have that type of paper come to us in advance of the summer busy season, so they can be delivered in a timely manner, and that the public are aware of it in advance. And that's really good for Richard and his team as well, probably, just to let the public know. So yes. Great work, very impressed. So I think that brings our items to a close for the day. We've already moved this item, seconded it, so we can move to the vote. So I move on 4. Mayor Carter, Councillor Court.
Aye.
Councillor Collard.
Aye.
Councillor Smith.
Support.
Councillor Vucic.
Aye.
Member Edmonds.
Aye.
And Member Gardner.
Aye.
Thank you. And Councillor Court on the chat notes that she loves my optimism about us having a tourism season. Of course I'm an optimist. We live in the best part of New Zealand. Of course everyone wants to come visit us, even if they're not from overseas. So yeah, might just be all the Northland people because we can't go through Auckland. So we have our CEO, Sean Clark to speak, and then we'll close our meeting with the karakia. Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank elected members for the positive feedback today. It's directly related to pushes that elected members have made on a couple of key elements of our superstructure, if you like, and I'm talking particularly about the NTA as an alliance, and I'm talking about social procurement as a movement. These are really big pieces of architecture in the way council works, and we have had a lot of difficulty along the way as we've gone through teething problems with setting up these sorts of policies. But this is a really good example of what it takes with a little bit of patience. We've got local procurement now hitting its straps with 294 workers, 111 previously unemployed, and 93% of them still retained. This is the best example we've had so far, with more to come on what your social procurement policy is now delivering on the ground. And we'll be looking forward to sharing those stats with lots of other government agencies who are struggling with social procurement and certainly not getting the same sorts of numbers that we are when we're giving 54% of the contract work to local small to medium enterprises. We're really getting the returns that you had forecast. NTA itself, so to Andy as the general manager, but to Kelvin as the sub team within the roading effort. Thanks to Deputy Mayor Court for her comment around extraordinary. She's very close to the roading portfolio and as the portfolio holder has good insights into how we work. Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism, some justified along the way, but when you see average monthly compliance of greater than 90% across all of the 5 contracts of Northland in terms of the roading inspections, and you see greater than 95% of the program having been delivered, and note that that's a 73% greater spend than the year before, we're in extraordinary territory now with the returns on NTA. And I know there are individual councillors in the room who'll still want to hit me up about things that are not quite right with this picture, but I'm glad we can just take a moment, and I encourage you to take a moment and just say things are moving in the right direction. We're getting some really spectacular returns on investment. So thanks for the direction, and I'm glad, and thanks very much for the positive feedback today. That's all. Well done to the team. Andy, please relay this to yours. I will be, and Kelvin in particular. I mean, fantastic years out 10. So thank you.
sure.
Thank you very much, Sean, and to you and for your work in the space as well. I would like to just conclude the meeting there. We've got our 2 items for today. And so you can have a breather before the next meeting. Our next infrastructure committee meeting, and being an optimist, we will have a meeting in person, I'm guessing. It's on Wednesday, the 13th of October at Te Ahu. So I'm sure you'll be very excited to come to Te Hiku o Tika. We would love to have you, no mai, haere mai, and I'm glad to see you in person at that meeting, hopefully. So we'll just finish our hui today with the karakia, and Councillor Smith will do the karakia for us today. Inoi tātou.
Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamo te moana. Hei huarahi ma tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Tātou e tātou katoa. Hui e, tai kia. Kia ora, Madam Chair.
Thanks, everybody.
Tēnā
you.
koe, Rachel. Thank you.
everybody.
See you, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers all.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Felicity.
your future virtual
Thank you.
meeting.
Cheers. Thank you.